Golden Spiral Media presents The Flash Rewatch.
I think you've been reading too many comic books.
Dedicated to the 1990 television series The Flash on CBS.
I think I'm starting to like this.
Join Corey and Tom each week as they chase down the fastest man alive and examine the short run of 22 episodes.
I mean, you people have a reputation. Unorthodox experiments, secret government contracts.
Send us your feedback at goldenspiralmedia.com/feedback. Like our Facebook page at facebook.com/rewatch podcast. And follow us on Twitter at rewatchpod.
Anytime you need me, I'll be there in a flash.
And welcome back to the Rewatch podcast and the Flash 90 Rewatch. I'm Corey.
And I'm a frivolous use of my powers as I run around and around and around and around and around and around and around.
You know they're going to run out eventually if you overexert yourself, but you do it anyway.
Exactly. It was just odd. Let me prove I got my powers back. I'm going to run around you in circles. Again and again and again.
Yeah, there it is. Thank you for joining us, everyone. We're, of course, here discussing two more episodes of The Flash 90. And this week's episodes are Fast Forward and Deadly Nightshade. So let's get straight into it. I'm so excited, actually. The first episode today is Fast Forward, written by Gail Morgan Hickman and directed by Gus Draconis. And this originally aired on February 27th of 1991.
Sure have changed.
Oh, you sure haven't. Look exactly the same as you did 10 years ago. Where'd you disappear to all this time?
Boy, it's a long story.
Does it have anything to do with that red suit?
I guess I owe you an explanation.
Well, if it makes it any easier, I figured out you were the Flash a long time ago.
You did?
Well, I had my suspicions, but when you both disappeared at the same time, I put it all together.
You don't know how long I wanted to tell you. I'm glad you finally know. But what has happened to this city? I mean, how did Pike become the mayor?
You really don't know?
No.
Well, after the Flash disappeared, Pike took over the city's criminal organizations, slowly corrupted the police department. All the honest cops quit or were fired. Crime got out of control. Hard times hit like never before. And next thing you know, he buys himself an election, and he's in the mayor's office.
Where'd all these factories come from?
Well, this is Pike's revitalization plan. You see, this is supposed to create jobs. Instead, it gave us pollution and slums.
Well, what about the people? Where are they, man? Why do you put up with this?
Look, the rich don't complain. They never had it so good. And who's going to listen to the poor? Anybody stands up to Pike, they end up in the police rehabilitation center.
The what?
It's in the old Star Labs building. They've got this machine that fries your brain, gives you an electronic lobotomy, and turns you into a vegetable.
Julio, where are my parents?
Okay, they moved to California back in the beginning. Your dad figured it'd only get worse.
And Sean and Eve?
Last I heard, Sean was with the Liberation Underground, and the cops were looking for him.
Liberation Underground.
Yeah, they're like a resistance movement. They cause as much trouble as they can. Nobody knows who they are or where they hide out.
Why do you stay?
I guess because this is my city, and I like to hope it'll get better. All we need is somebody like the Flash to help us get started.
Oh, Julio, I can't help anybody. I'm not the Flash anymore. I've lost it.
I see.
I have to talk to Tina. Where can I find her?
Hey, with the cops looking for you, we got to stay off the streets.
I have to find out what's happened to me.
All right.
The return of Nicholas Pike causes Barry and company great stress, so much so that Barry decides he needs to leave town for a while. Unfortunately, Pike has plans to get his revenge on the Flash and attacks him with a heat-seeking missile. As the Flash outruns the missile, it explodes, and that, combined with Barry's speed, sends him hurtling 10 years into the future. Barry, sans his power after his trip through time, finds a central city that has been taken over by Pike and rules through fear. He is easily captured and tortured by Pike, which inadvertently shows Barry that his powers could be reactivated again. He escapes, and Tina assists him in activating his powers and returning him to his time period, where he subdues Pike and his new gang easily, ensuring the future he saw never happens.
Barry's here because of an accident. A tear in the space-time continuum. Now, if he could get back through that tear, maybe he could keep all this from happening.
You mean go back in the past and stop Pike from taking over Central City in the first place?
Yes.
Is that possible?
Theoretically,
How do we do it?
there's only one way. We've got to break into Star Labs.
Oh, that'd be suicide.
No, not necessarily. If they're still using the same old security system, I should be able to override it and get us all inside.
I guess we don't have a choice. Someone once told me the Flash would be forgotten in a few years. I never thought he'd end up in a museum. And all those people out there waiting for me to save them. I don't know if I can be what they want me to be.
I believe in you.
Okay, getting into the flashpoints. May I say, I was right. Woo!
You were right.
Time
You're
travel.
so right. I know. I was so shocked because I did not remember this episode really at all. Especially the time travel. I was like, wow, we actually got time travel.
Yeah, no flashpoint, but still, time travel.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yeah, it was cool. I was very shocked and surprised. It was enjoyable. So the other thing that I noticed was they actually showed the Flash Museum. I mean, it was not exactly the grand Flash Museum that the comic book readers would know, because the comic book readers, the Flash Museum is just huge, gigantic, kind of like in the new Flash 90 series. They went to that warehouse to test out the powers of like the whole group when they were together for the crossover, and the outside of it looked like the Justice League headquarters from the cartoon show. That's kind of like how the Flash Museum is pictured in the comics. Like it's huge and grandiose, and like the citizens put it all together for him and just in tribute to him, sort of like they did in here. But this is like the small rundown version of the Flash Museum.
Yeah, the best they could in a dystopian future.
Exactly. It was still fun to see, though, when they showed that. I was like, oh, awesome. And then the other thing that was kind of cool was when Murphy and Bellows in the future get arrested for selling Flash memorabilia or whatever. They show a Flash action figure that they were selling, and that Flash action figure I actually have. I actually own that at that same one. It's from the DC Superpowers line back in the 80s. So it was pretty cool to see that on there.
Tie in some merch with their Bellows and Murphy gag.
Exactly.
Very funny. I love it.
So it would appear that I owe a big apology to a certain mystery man whom I suggested might be the real culprit in this crime. And when this reporter makes a mistake, he's big enough to admit it. So here's a personal message from yours truly to the Scarlet Speedster. Whoever you are, Mr. Flash, this is Joe Klein saying, sorry, babe.
Well, it looks like you're one of the good guys again. Barry, you never explained to me why you changed your mind about leaving Central City.
Well, sometimes things happen, and suddenly you see the world very differently. And you realize that what you have is more valuable than you thought.
All right, so let's get into the rundown. So, an interesting idea, like I was saying, like, I'm happy that it's time travel and everything, but they don't really get into Flashpoint. And
No.
it's curious to why they didn't do that, because I mean Flashpoint is like the end all be all Flash time travel story.
Well, I mean, I'm pretty sure. Let me just check to be sure before I put my my foot in my mouth. Yeah. So this is the Flash 90, and now we're Flash 91. This is about 10 years before Flashpoint was a thing in the comics.
Okay, so there you go.
Yeah. See, Flashpoint was an amazing story. Amazing story in the comics. And I didn't even read, when Flashpoint came out, that was after I had stopped collecting comics. But I've read a bunch of issues here and there. They've collected some things into graphic novels. But I mean, it affected the entire DC universe. So it ran through all of their titles. They were all tie-ins to the main story. But yeah, that was in 2011 when that came out. And it was just so good. That's why everyone knows about Flashpoint, partially because of the CW series, but because that was a big event for the whole entire DC universe. If you were a DC reader, you felt the repercussions of that. So it's huge. But it was 10 years after Flash 90. So that's why it's not in here.
Well, that is fascinating, because honestly, I mean, like I said when we started doing the Flash 90 rewatch, that I'm not a comic book guy. I'm a TV and film guy. So that kind of blows my mind, because, from what I knew of The Flash because of the new show, is that just like Flashpoint was the big thing about The Flash. And I assumed it was just part of Flash lore, its original run or something got into this whole time travel story. So was time travel actually like a mainstay of The Flash, and that was incorporated into the Flashpoint story later?
Well, he's always been able to do time travel, in the comics. I remember him doing time travel back when I was reading comics, so it's always been there. It's just, like I said, if I haven't read all of Flashpoint, so I'm not exactly sure, but it's, at some point he decides what if he can go back and save his mother, which I don't know why he's never done it before. Like I said, I don't know the total backstory of Flashpoint, but he's always time traveled before. It's never been a problem, but it was just this time he decided to change his own life, and that's where the whole thing ended up destroying the DC universe and rebuilding it. So yeah, I don't know. That's I'm not sure about why they hadn't done it before that, but there you go.
Yeah, fascinating. I like it. But having said that, I do love a good time travel story, right?
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, you and I both, we're sci-fi guys, right? It's the reason we love Sliders. I mean, that's not time travel, but that's interdimensional travel. So it kind of covers that region of sci-fi, interdimensionality, time travel. These are themes that you and I love in sci-fi,
right?
For sure. So when time travel comes into it, I love to see how different mediums handle time travel. In this case, which I think is the best way to handle time travel, is that if you leave the timeline and then re-enter it somewhere else, you're entering a future where you actually disappeared. You didn't live your life across that 10 years.
Right, yeah.
Which is not the way they do it in something like Back to the Future, where Marty goes forward in time, but he sees himself as an older man and stuff like that. He has continued to exist. So, and it goes to that infinite amount of futures depending on what decisions you make and yada, yada, yada. So it makes sense to me that if you remove from the timeline and re-enter it, that you have disappeared for that period of time. And it makes for an interesting story here, especially when you put in this idea that Pike is released from prison, that he is feeling frustrated and he actually wants to leave. So that sort of gives him the motivations for where it's going to go. So how do you feel about this story? The idea with Pike and everything.
I'm just I was surprised that they found a way to get him off. That was surprising. I'm I know they're not going to go into it because that's not the most important thing for the story, but I was still well, that's kind of I don't think that actually would have happened, but for the sake of the story, you go along with it. I was surprised to see him because I did not expect to see him again. I thought he was a one-off villain and that was it, but yeah, very surprising to have the same actor back for this role.
Yeah, it's definitely a week of reoccurring characters. Of course, we're going to talk about it the next episode when we get to it. But yeah, it was very interesting to see Pike back. I'm assuming, because really the only other new characters we see in this episode are Sean, age 17, and we also see this attorney, Monica, who I'm assuming, because Pike is not an original comics character that Monica's also just made up for the show.
Yeah, just made up.
She is a really good attorney if she can get this guy out of prison. And I understand they're going with, the vigilante defense, no procedures and everything when you're caught by the Flash. And of course, it gives it a good capper for the episode of him, re-offending.
Right.
So that precedent is then thrown out. So going forward, you can say, okay, when the Flash catches a bad guy and he goes to prison, he's probably going to stay in prison.
Yeah.
Outside of that, her relationship with Pike is weird. Am I right?
Oh, yeah. It's very weird. Well, it's kind of like when in the pilot when he had that relationship with that other girl. It's a very odd thing.
It makes me wonder, was Harley Quinn established at this point? Because I know she first appeared in the animated series, but that was after this, right?
Yeah, that was after this. Because, that's where she came from.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking. It's kind of like a pseudo Harley Quinn kind of relationship where Harley Quinn was the doctor to the Joker and then became Harley Quinn.
Exactly.
Here she's a lawyer who seems to have fallen in love with Pike for whatever reason. So, yeah, I didn't like it. I did like that they tied Devil's Gate Dam back into it, which was a good little, just continuity, right? I think you and I talk a lot about continuity between stuff.
Yes.
So that was nice.
Bringing back things from before. Yeah, I thought that was good. And yeah, it does seem like that character, kind of like a precursor, like of the archetype of Harley Quinn. So I don't think that's where, I can't imagine that's where Paul Dini got the idea from. But you never know. You never know. He might have been watching this and say, "Oh, that's a neat idea. What if we do something like
influenced.
that for?" Yeah, who knows?
And they also go with like an accidental use of powers as well. Like when Barry was dosed with that drug. What was it? Like the blue mist or the ocean spray or whatever it was called. And accidentally vibrated through the wall. Here, he is chased down by a missile, which explodes and then shoots him forward in time. So, again, like, I don't mind that, an accident for him to learn how to do something.
Right.
I do wish that it was something that was reoccurring. Like, I wish we had seen him, like, vibrate through walls again or something, now that he knows he can do it.
Yeah, that's what I've said that many times. Like, why can't you just vibrate through there? It's like you did it once, you can do it. Practice it, on your downtime.
Well, and this is a Pandora's box, right? Introducing here that he can travel through time can sort of influence things later. Like, I know this only went the one season, but, if it went on, you could get to points where you're just like, why don't you just travel back in time?
Exactly.
Like that'll save everything.
Do that too much. You get the time wraiths, and get them coming after you, and So you don't want to do it too much. I'm kind of glad that they did that in the new Flash. Kind of curtailing the time travel, because if you could time travel, you make a mistake, you could just go back and fix it. Just constantly. So it's good that they created the idea that if you do it too much, you're going to mess things up major. So I wouldn't want to see our Flash here do it too much, but once in a while, it's nice. It's fun.
Okay, so I guess we should get into the future. The year 2001. So far in the future.
So far in the future. Exactly.
But a whole decade. He skips a whole decade. And when he arrives, of course, it's like he just disappeared. Everybody thought he just skipped town. Barry's left. But Julio has pieced together that Barry is the Flash.
I was, for a second there, when Barry showed up and he had the suit on, I was going to say, they can't just ignore it, and Julio has to know for sure now because he's wearing the suit. But I was kind of hoping just to see you get irate. I was hoping they would say something like, "Why are you wearing Flash pajamas, man?"
It was the way he said it to him, though. When he first saw, he's just like, "What's with the red suit?" And I'm like, he's not going to like talk his way out of this one, is he? Come on.
Exactly.
So yeah, when he said like, "You disappeared, the Flash disappeared," I already had my suspicions of you. That pretty much nailed it for me. So yes, I know you're the Flash. I'm like, thank God.
Exactly.
But for some reason, Julio's also not had a haircut in a decade.
Yeah. His hair hasn't changed.
That was a lot of hair on that head.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's gone to hell.
Yep.
The whole place, This is very Back to the Future, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Back to the Future 2, I should say, with Biff changing the timeline. I didn't mind it. As derivative as it was, like I said, Back to the Future 2, it's still a good idea of like...
It is.
Barry's got to learn the lesson. And the lesson here is that Central City needs the Flash. So the fact that he's in this city, it made sense to me, you know? And yeah, they explain a lot of things away, like the parents. Like the first thing he would want to do is find out about his parents, but when they're like, nah, your parents left and went to Florida, which is understandable.
Right.
Like they would want to live in a city where the man who murdered their son is the mayor. So they left.
Exactly. Yes. I thought, it's a bit much to think that just 10 years and Pike has completely turned this city into like some kind of like nightmare. So it was at first I was like, well, it's a bit much, but you go along with it. But there are checks and balances in place that I think would prevent that from totally happening. Although here in the United States, we'll find out. We got 3 more years left to find it, so we'll let you know. We'll come back and see. Maybe Pike is okay. Maybe
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, I know in 1991, I mean, it could be understandable if you were like, seriously, this guy became mayor. What?
Right.
He
Yes.
would, but when you think about it, the way Julio explains it is that he used to be a police officer, really.
Yep.
He was convicted, but that was overturned, right? So
Yep.
there's really no record of him, joining a gang or anything like that. He was just
Right.
an ex-police officer who was injured.
Yeah, true.
But then the city kind of went to crap because the Flash wasn't around, so he was able to buy his way into an election and won.
Exactly.
So you're like,
Yeah.
cool. Got it. Yeah. Nice, easy, clean. I could go with that.
Yep.
And then, bringing Tina into it. I thought her reactions were great as well.
Oh, yeah.
She was pissed.
I like this angry acting a lot more than I like the pseudo like bad girl acting that she did previously. This was a lot more believable to me.
I almost wish she'd backhanded Barry as well. She slaps him, but she could have backhanded him. That would have been
great. Payback.
But yeah, no, I liked her here. Like, I thought her emotions like really carried when she just, she sees him, slaps him, tells him to get out. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what I would do too.
Right.
You were Central City's superhero cleaning up the streets, and then just one day you were like, I'm leaving, and then you did. And you just didn't come back, and the whole place went to crap, and you still didn't come back. Like, what the hell, man?
Yeah, so that was the good thing about this, because like if Barry had just left like he planned and hadn't time traveled, he would have come back as soon as things started to go badly, But to everyone else, he just left and never looked back. So it's understandable they were hurt.
And then the Liberation Underground comes into it, and we had a scene of him with Sean at the beginning,
Right.
coming back for a third time. So not only were you wrong about Sean never coming back,
know.
he's come back a couple of times now.
I know. I'm just full of wrong this episode.
But no, I wish he'd kind of been bigger in the thing, right?
Yeah.
They make this whole thing about, hey, where's Sean? Oh, he joined the Liberation Underground. And then he kind of just comes into one scene and he's like, hey, Uncle Barry, is it true that you're the Flash? Well, cool. Like, we're good. And then you never see him again.
Exactly.
It was strange.
You kind of like thought this is going to be like a Terminator thing, with Connors and everything. But no, it's just, he's just there.
And Garfield was a lot of fun as well.
Oh, yeah, he was funny. His hair was so insane.
It was kind of strange. Like, if like more time had passed, I could have bought it, because really it seemed like he was playing it like old man Garfield. And he's like,
Yes.
dude, like, I know you were like, I don't know, 50 or something. It's only 10 years. Like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't have gone like this old and crazy in 10 years.
Exactly.
Albeit that, the town has gone to shit.
Uh-huh.
But he's like totally into it as well. Like, hey, Barry, I always knew something was up with you. Shouldn't I call you the Flash?
Yeah.
Woo! I'm like, wow, you're really going crazy, Garfield. Just a bizarre characterization, but I liked it.
No, it was good. He was a funny part of the episode, definitely.
All right, so what do you think of the solution to the episode? The booster that Tina manages to synthesize?
It was just it was a little quick. I know usually things are not so quick, but the thing that I thought was odd, that he gets his powers back and immediately, boom, he's like back. Like, it just like the original one. I know it's because they exploded, they blew up Star Labs and everything like that. I don't know. I thought there would be a little bit more to getting him back to where he came from, besides just the getting his powers back with the booster and then blowing up the building. I know it makes sense story-wise, but it just seemed like, boom, all of a sudden he's back.
Yeah, it kind of makes me wish that this was like a two-parter.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, this story by itself was just a bit too big, and that it could have benefited from being covered over 2 weeks, so they could really flesh out the story. Because, we've said it before, usually they're pretty good with the story as it flows. It's got a beginning, middle, and end, and it all seems very naturally played out. Whereas you're right, this one was just so abrupt of like, hey, we'll get you back in the Flash suit, and they'll be scared, and then we'll synthesize this booster and blow up Star Labs. It's a big risk, but we'll do it. And then they just do it.
Yes, exactly.
And it's done. And it works. And then he's back and stops Pike. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, wow. High stakes, I get it, but it was too quick.
Yeah, I would definitely, like, when I was watching, I was like, oh, this would be so good if they could have, like, explored more, of the future world, had some more scenes there between people. I was wondering, like, why did he lose his powers when he came to the future? Was it just because this was such a major, like, time travel jump, and that's why they weren't working, and like now that he has the booster and it gives him the powers back, but are they permanent? Do they stay or what? Like, how does it work? They don't really explore the whole like behind his powers, the whole thing behind his powers in this episode.
Well, I think there was a precedent for it, and they haven't gone into it a lot, but I noticed it back in the Trickster episode where Barry has to run all the way out of town to go and help Megan Lockhart, and he gets there and he's like, I'm really beat. Like, can you drive me back to Central City?
Right.
Like, if he overexerts himself, he is pretty much depowered.
Yeah.
So I think a jump into the future is kind of warranted. Like, maybe if they just waited it out, he would have been fine. But he had to get back now, so they had to do this booster thing.
Exactly. See, that's what I'm saying. If it was a two-parter, they could have flesh that out more. Been slightly more satisfying, perhaps.
And he did sort of briefly get his powers back when he was doing that electroshock thing that
the
Pike puts people through, But it only lasted, like 20 seconds or something. He beat up a couple of dudes and then immediately was depowered again. Just going back to that two-nighter, like, they really could have played this out, told more about how the powers work, and really just flashed out the story a lot more.
Exactly.
But instead they tried to compress it into this 40 minutes, and it was too quick.
Yeah.
And then we're back in 91, and they need to resolve that there are two Flashes, right? Because they get him back so he can stop the missile, pretty much. They can't have him return after the missile goes off. So how did you like this idea that he stops the missile and then
they
shimmery merge together?
I mean, it's a little bit like, like hand wavy, a little bit like, oh, here we go. Everything's taken care of now. and it was fine. It's time travel, so there's no rules. You make up your own rules as you go along, how you want to interpret time travel, like we said earlier. And so that's fine. That's how they're dealing with it. So you go with it.
It just made me think, because, like, he comes back in time, he stops the missile, and then the other Barry sort of looks at him like, what the hell?
Exactly.
Who are you and where did you come from? But then he immediately, like, just knows that he has to merge with this other Flash.
Yeah.
Like, there was no, like, what are you doing? Why are you coming so close to me? I don't know you. Even though you look just like me, I don't know who or what you are. He kind of just lets it happen. I was like, weird.
In my mind, like, see, time travel is so hard. You would think that now that he's stopped the missile, that whole future doesn't happen, so that the Barry that came back should just sort of fade away. That's how I think of it. But then, it's like, well, wait, then you have a paradox, because if that didn't happen, he would never have been in the future to come back, and blah, blah, that's the whole thing. It's like, time travel is very difficult. So to do it this way, it's probably the easiest way to explain it away.
Exactly. At the end of the day, they're not trying to go like, high concept sci-fi here, like Primer. Like, do you ever see Primer?
I have not seen it, but I've seen the previews for it.
Yeah, like, that is high concept time travel. If nobody's seen that movie, like, it will just make you go like, I thought I knew about time travel, but these guys have really thought about time travel.
Yeah, they're not trying to be that technical about it.
Exactly. We just need a way to resolve this. So, they shimmery merge together. Problem solved.
Exactly.
But at the end of the day, I love this episode. I thought it was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
I thought they I thought the story was interesting. I love the interpretation that all the actors did of their future selves. It was all around fun and interesting.
Yeah, like last week's episodes were just kind of like I said last week, they're kind of blah to me. It's just like, whatever, This one was fun, very enjoyable. I would definitely watch this one again.
Yeah, for sure. And now it's time for another episode of Words of Warning with Tina McGee.
Tina?
I don't know what you're doing here, but I want you to get out right now.
This has been another episode of Words of Warning with Tina McGee. All right, well, let's get into the second episode discussion. The episode is Deadly Nightshade, written by John Francis Moore and Howard Chaykin, directed by Bruce Bilson, and this originally aired on March 30th of 1991, a whole month since the last episode aired.
Oh, wow.
I had to throw that in there.
Yeah.
They're getting crazy with the amount of time that's passing between episodes.
Whatever his extraordinary speed, the Flash is playing out a macho adolescent fantasy.
Oh, boy.
With all its problems, does Central City really need a self-appointed guardian angel? A masked man who should be under observation, not on the streets?
Overeducated twit!
What is this? Just when I thought I was starting to get some respect in the city, suddenly I'm a killer at worst and a psychotic time bomb at best? Why? Because she said so? I know the difference between right and wrong, let me tell you.
Barry, it's only TV. Bad TV. This woman is no more than a rich girl's overpaid therapist rattling her saber for the clientele.
Macho, adolescent fantasy.
Psychobabble buzzwords. Barry, you shouldn't let it bother you.
I know, I shouldn't. But you never knew me before the accident, Tina. I always finished second. Second to Dad, second to Jay. I was always in their shadow.
That has nothing to do with your being the Flash.
Well, now wait, maybe it has everything to do with it. Now no one can keep up with me. I used to haunt the lab. It was the only place I was in control. Now it feels cramped, confined. I have this overwhelming need for space, for speed. The accident changed me. Maybe more than I know. But I do not lie awake at night wondering if I'm going to lose control.
I don't lose sleep over that either, Barry. But I have to admit, I can never fully understand what it is like to do the things you do. But there is someone who does know. Maybe you should talk to Dr. Powell.
The Nightshade.
When a new and deadlier Nightshade emerges, executing criminals, the Flash seeks the help of the original Nightshade. However, the Flash faces off not just one enemy, but a second one in the guise of Rebecca Frost, a psychologist focusing on the sanity of masked vigilantes like the Flash and Nightshade. Together, Barry and the original Nightshade, Desmond Powell, manage to discover the identity of the new unforgiving vigilante and attempt to bring him down before he executes Joe Klein live on his show. The deadly Nightshade escapes and dons his superpowered exoskeleton, but Desmond manages to use his non-deadly trank gun to give Barry a fighting chance in taking down the mad villain.
Central's criminal community spent another night in mourning after the brutal slaying of one-time mobster
Dr. Powell.
Johnny Dortmund.
What's with your generation? Don't any of you have a knock?
Oh, sorry, I was in the building. Forensics in the double-decker Johnny killing. Slugs matched the LPA massacre. If only I'd been there a moment sooner.
It stinks sometimes knowing that you can't save everyone. You do what you can.
I've received a tape from the man claiming responsibility for the onslaught on the underworld. Let's roll this Channel 6 exclusive.
The execution of the Liberatorian People's Army is the first salvo in my war on crime in Central City. And on those half-citizens who would aid and abet criminal activity, fear the wrath of the deadly Nightshade.
Nightshade.
All right, flashpoints. What do we got?
All right, so this was cool. Desmond Powell mentions gun running for Gorilla Grodd.
I caught that.
Did you catch that? Yeah. I was like, well, that's kind of cool that they even mentioned Gorilla Grodd. I don't remember that in like when I first watched it, you know. But yeah, definitely this time I was like, oh, that's cool. And all right, I'm going to say I'm pretty sure they don't do Gorilla Grodd in this show. Because if they did, can you imagine this time what that would look like?
I thought it was a funny way to sort of drop the line because I know they even like really had a lot of discussions on the new series on whether or not to do Gorilla Grodd.
Right.
But they have done it. They've also done Killer Shark, and you're like, come on. Like,
I know, seriously.
But this was a funny way of putting that in there, right? You've got like gangsters like Double Decker Johnny. Like, let's just throw in that Gorilla Grodd is this gangster guy or something.
There you go. Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
It's funny.
They also had this drop line about Captain Julius Schwartz, which I think we have mentioned before. Maybe it was in Lois and Clark. Julius Schwartz was an editor at DC and DC Comics. So another little reference back to the comic book there.
Oh, very nice.
And then they mentioned Captain Cooper. If we remember from the pilot, you know, the total captain, are we ever going to see him again? We didn't see him, but they at least mentioned him, so he is there still. I thought it was cool that we got Tasha Yar and 7 of 9 here, 2 Star Trek alums.
It's so weird, too, because I was watching it, and I'm like, I recognize her.
Yeah.
As in Felicia Kane.
Yes.
And at first I thought it was Denise Richards, but then I thought, no, we talked about Denise Richards in Lois and Clark, and that being like her first role because she was dating Dean Cain, so it couldn't be her. I'm like, oh, I know her. And it wasn't until, you know, I saw your notes for the flashpoints, I was like, oh, of course.
Yeah, Jerry Ryan, yeah.
And then not to mention that we've talked about what's-her-face who plays Tasha Yar, because she was that weirdo doctor girlfriend of Lex's who froze him, or whatever it was, to bring him back to life.
I was surprised to see her show up in this episode because I did not remember her being in here, you know? I definitely remembered her from Lois and Clark, but in The Flash, I was like, whoa, it's her, and she's playing a doctor again. So it was kind of neat to see her again, Denise Crosby. And then finally, this was kind of neat. I discovered this when we were talking back in the pilot, we were going over some things, and it turns out the guy who played the Deadly Nightshade, the guy who played Curtis Bohannon, his name is Richard Burgi, I think. Burgi or Burgi. He was actually up for the role of Barry Allen originally.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and if you look at him, you know, in the show, he is very similar to John Wesley Shipp. You know, they have a similar, like, their facial features are kind of similar coloring, you know. You don't get to see much of his muscular stature or anything, but he's very similar to John Wesley Shipp, and it was down to the 2 actors, both of them, and they eventually went with John Wesley Shipp instead of Richard Burgi. But it was kind of neat that he's actually in this episode.
I mean, it's cool and everything, but it's almost like getting a consolation prize or something. Like, well, you're not going to be the main character of the show, but do you want to come and do a one-off where you play a villain?
Exactly.
Wow, thanks. Sure. Well, I actually do need the paycheck, so yes.
Exactly.
I'll do it.
Yeah. He had a pretty decent career, you know, as well. Like, he did a couple other, he's done movies and TV, but he was in that TV show, The Sentinel. Do you remember that?
Not really. I don't think I saw it.
Yeah, I'm not, I remember seeing it advertised, but I never watched it myself. But it was kind of like a superhero-ish type show as well.
Well, there you go.
He was a detective, but he was in the Army Special Forces, and he developed hyperactive senses. So he could see, you know, in the dark for 200 yards, hear music from far away, can distinguish between wood and plastic after both have been he can distinguish between wood and plastic after both have been in a 3,000-degree fire.
Okay. Sounds fascinating.
He's told that he is a sentinel who in ancient tribes would protect villages, and seek out game using hyperactive senses. So it's kind of like a superhero-ish type thing.
But no other quick connections here?
Yeah, no other quick connections. I mean, I looked at, like, when they introduced Denise Crosby's character, Rebecca Frost, I was like, Frost? You know, I was thinking maybe Killer Frost, but no.
Exactly. I was like, is this supposed to be like Caitlin Snow or something?
Exactly.
Or...
Yeah, that was my first thought.
They maybe named her Frost as an homage to like Killer Frost or something.
Yeah.
Let's just throw that in there.
And then Felicia Kane, the name Kane itself is very popular in Batman lore because, of course, Bob Kane created Batman. But there's a number of characters with the last name of Kane as well, including Batwoman, Kathleen Kane. But there's no... I tried to find a Felicia Kane, could not find a Felicia Kane in DC Comics.
And well, that would lend itself to what the character is, this
Right.
rich socialite, which, is pretty much what Bruce Wayne is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
He's a rich guy with the alter ego of Batman, so yeah, maybe just a little wink wink nudge nudge there for the Kane family.
Exactly.
Next time, just tell me where we're headed.
What the hell with that? Then you'd end up beating me here. When I go to this much trouble, I want to get my money's worth.
How do you suppose the double-decker Johnny killing figures into all this?
I'm not sure. I nailed him in that West Side real estate scam back in the 50s when I took down Derek Bohannon and his gang. I used to have a stoolie that hang out here, name of Fosnate.
I'll go around back.
To Johnny!
Yeah, poor Johnny. Straightens out and gets this. It ain't the old days.
Oh, kidding. That Nightshade's nuts. Walking in here and doing John like that.
Yeah, you got that right, Pearl. We're all afraid of work. Until this Nightshade's history again, I ain't even gonna jaywalk.
I want answers! I need them now.
You look like my second husband, Eddie. Only naked.
I said I want answers.
Relax. You're the least of our worries. Nightshade's popped a half a dozen small timers last week.
I hope you're here to protect us from him.
This killer's an imposter.
That's right. No need for protection from me, Pearl. Not from the original. We're all too old to be adversaries anymore. Let it be. False night. Long time since I brought you down short counting for Gorilla Grodd out of Helltown.
Yeah, I took one of your tranq bullets. I slept for 3 days. At least I woke up. This guy was claiming to be you. He's another story.
But why kill Double Decker? I heard he went straight.
Like an arrow. This Nightshade imposter's got snakes in his head.
I'll leave you here. I know a way to get a profile on just the kind of man we're looking for.
Whoa! You let us slow down. He's gonna give himself a coronary. So, what are you drinking? Listen, do you need a straw with that thing?
All right, well, let's get into the rundown. All right, so I have to say, from the get-go, with this whole bit of the Libertarian People's Army being gunned down by what we come to know as the Deadly Nightshade, I totally knew it wasn't Nightshade from the get-go.
Yeah. It's pretty clear.
Like, they try their best to hide it for a bit, right? But as soon as he comes in and he just guns them all down, I'm like, that's not Nightshade. Like, this is totally someone else. And it's probably someone who feels like they've been inspired by Nightshade, but are sort of, bastardizing his motivations. And that's exactly what this is. Now, having said that, I didn't think this episode was, derivative in any way or unsurprising, even though I knew where they were going.
I love the idea of a previous generation of a hero coming back to help the modern hero. I think it was great. Yeah, there was nothing in it that made me think oh yeah, we've been here before. I thought it was a good idea. And
I think that's exactly why I liked it, right? Because when we first met Nightshade, he was the older generation inspiring Barry with what he was doing, right? Yep. Giving him information. And then, of course, that coming back here where he's kind of struggling with what he's doing. So he does go and see Dr. Powell. That was cool. And then on the reverse is that Nightshade has inadvertently inspired someone to do bad stuff, pretty much. Yeah. Right? Yeah. He's inspired someone kind of like Barry, but not really, because they're not thinking what they're doing. In doing what they're doing, which is killing people, that's bad, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the Deadly Nightshade he's basically like the Punisher in Marvel Comics. If you've committed a crime, the Punisher's going to come and he's going to kill you. That's you're done. So obviously he's bad, but even the Punisher, in Marvel Comics, it's not like they arrest him. You know, I mean, I know probably they have over his whole history, but like he does what he does. You know, he punishes people who have done bad things, and that's what he's doing here. Even though it's like people have served their time. You know, in the case of that one guy, the bar owner guy, he's still like, hey, you were a bad guy, done. Sorry.
Well, and then it calls into question of the thing of like, is the fact that they have served their time in prison absolve them of what their crimes were, right?
Exactly.
And I think it does, right? Like they were convicted in a court of law of their crimes. They served time in prison, at which point they were released. And then this guy shows up and kills him for the same crime. You're like, who are you to do that? Like,
exactly. That's what, Desmond Powell makes that statement. He goes, I'm not judge, jury, and executioner. You know, we just take them and let the system do its job. Yeah. No, I like it. I like that, the story, the idea behind this.
Of course, this deadly Nightshade has done it, and immediately everyone's like, it must have been the Flash, as if like there could be no other vigilantes. It kind of, in a way, is sort of pinning blame on the Flash as well as Nightshade. Like, the two of them have inspired this person to do it, so to an extent they are responsible.
I think, like, the whole thing is, the one thing that would have made this better is if we didn't know what happened with Felicia Kane when she was kidnapped. Like, we see that the deadly Nightshade comes in and kills everyone, and that the Flash comes in and saves her, but she's so shocked, she's in shock from the whole thing that all she could say is Flash, Flash, and so that's where people start thinking the Flash is responsible. It would have been neat if they had somehow shot it in a way that left it ambiguous to us as well, where we weren't sure exactly what happened, and maybe. Like, I'm really going off here, but if they had like done something with Barry where he's been experiencing some kind of weird thing with his powers, maybe he's missing time or something like that. And remember the episode where he was controlled, he was controlled and he lost time. If they had combined that with this and we didn't know exactly what happened, did he do something bad? Did he kidnap her? I think that could have been another epic two-parter. We need to go back in time.
No, I totally agree with you. I mean, saying that, that makes a lot more sense. They could have even tied it in the last episode with just like, hey, like you traveled through time, like your powers, you got injected with that stuff, like something weird's going on. So you're right. Like if it just opened up with this sort of vague opening of something happening to this group, and then cut to Barry and Tina at the lab or something doing their tests, and then they see on the news Dr. Rebecca Frost going like, what the hell's going on with the Flash? Like some vigilante showed up and killed everybody. Jesus, the Flash must have done something, and him going like, I don't think I did that.
Right, exactly. That would have been awesome.
And then they could have even played that further with Dr. Powell, right?
Yep.
Because pretty much when he goes there and this guy calling himself Nightshade is taking responsibility.
Right.
It's kind of just like, oh, it must be a copycat.
Yeah.
They could have at least done something of like, Dr. Powell, like, what are you thinking? And he'd be like, hey, it wasn't me. I don't know how you could think that of me. It ends up being a little bit by the numbers as it goes forward. Even though I'm still engaged and I'm interested, it's a good story. Definitely. It is still very by the numbers. And they could have done a bit more to sort of ramp up that mystery and suspense.
Yes.
And I'm not sure I would ever believe that the Flash went out and killed people, even if Barry was having blackouts, but still, it's something, something a little extra, an extra layer of mystery could have helped to really make this a solid standout episode. But they do introduce Curtis Bohannon, who I think at the end of the day is kind of just like a Batman ripoff as a bad guy, pretty much. Right? That's the story here.
Pretty much.
His parents are dead, just like Batman. But in his case, it's kind of a reversal, right? Whereas Bruce Wayne's parents were kind of pillars of the community. Curtis Bohannon's parents, well, at least his father, was pretty much a big gangster. Yes. And he's aware of this, and he kind of now spends his time and his money trying to make up for that. He makes donations to hospitals and stuff. That's how Dr. Powell knows him. And it's kind of obvious that he is the Deadly Nightshade, because he's the character. It's definitely not Rebecca Frost. Like, I never... the only other character that's introduced. Besides that other doctor guy, I don't even remember what his name was, but he gets gunned down.
Right.
What did you think of Curtis Bohannon and his, Deadly Nightshade persona? Did you like it? Did you like this super suit thing that he built?
The super suit thing was weird, but everything else was good. Like, everything else was good. The super suit thing, again, they have to find a way to either depower Barry or pump up his bad guys, because it's otherwise an uneven fight. So that's why they got the super suit in there, of course. But I think I liked it. I enjoyed the whole episode. I think they could have done without the super suit. They could have found another way, perhaps, to even the playing field. But I like the Deadly Nightshade just being like the Punisher type character, and there could have been more conversation, like I said, between the Deadly Nightshade and Barry about like how you can't be the executioner and judge and jury. Like, you have to just like the different ideologies, basically. If they could have looked more into that and played off on that, they could have made Curtis Bohannon more of a what's the word? Like, more of a fleshed out villain, more of a dangerous villain, maybe. Obviously he's dangerous, but he's kind of like a one-off character, very simple. He just wants to kill the bad guys and that's it. But like, what is his thinking? Like, we're going into the psychology with Dr. Frost, so why not go further into there and see what makes him tick underneath that? Why does he have to do this?
Yeah, and I don't even think they resolve that in this episode,
they don't, no,
which is the downside. The only kind of resolution that you get with that is after the Deadly Nightshade guns down Double Decker Johnny, you got Foss Knight there with this woman called Pearl, and they're like, why did Nightshade come back after all these years and kill him?
Right.
The real Nightshade shows up and he's like, hey, we're all old, like, we're not enemies anymore, let's have a drink. And they're like, okay, yeah, we totally believe that you didn't kill Double Decker Johnny. Then it's done.
Yes, exactly.
Like, we get it, like, that wasn't you, Nightshade, because that's not your MO. Why would they have that resolution with Fast Night and everything and then not have it with Bohannon? Instead, he gets like electrocuted or something. It is strange. And that super suit was weird, because I was like, okay, so he's got this exoskeleton that's going to make him strong, but the Flash is really fast.
Yeah.
And he kind of just has this thing of like, no, it doesn't make him strong, it enhances his senses.
Yeah.
So pretty much he's strong and fast as well.
Exactly.
Whatever. It's a bit silly and a bit over the top, but it was fine. I also like that Barry just revealed his identity to Dr. Powell. We talked about this in the Nightshade episode. Like, do we think Dr. Powell knows that the Flash is Barry Allen? When he rocked up there just as Barry, and he turned around to him and goes, I had my suspicion anyway. I was like, damn right you did.
Exactly. He's done it for a long time. He's smart.
I think we were right in our assumptions that Powell knew who he was, but he told him not to reveal it more for Barry than it was for himself.
Exactly.
He wanted Barry to feel safe. But, they shorthanded it in this, right? Like, he could have shown up as the Flash and then decided to reveal himself to Dr. Powell. But instead he just rocks up as Barry. And he's like, oh, yeah, no, I totally knew.
And that could have been just a production thing too, to like, because once you get that mask on, like, it's not like where you just take it off, because I think they even said they had to glue parts of it down to his face, so it's that's probably why they did that.
Too difficult for him to do a reveal.
Exactly. It's not like modern costuming techniques, and they make it look seamless when they take off the mask and everything. It's they don't have the budget for that.
Well, what about the idea that Powell's identity is out?
I was confused. Like, I thought maybe I missed a scene. I was like, where did Garfield get this envelope, this top secret envelope from? It just appeared.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. I don't know where it came from. It was like notes or something taken by the captain from the 50s, who was like,
I guess,
I know his identity and I'm writing it down here for whoever is captain after me, and I leave it to your discretion to reveal, if you want to, that Nightshade is Dr. Powell.
I was surprised that they went and arrested him, but then I guess it makes sense because they don't know that there's two of them at this point.
Well, and not to mention that Garfield and Powell are besties.
Yes, exactly.
They've been good friends forever. And I know that Barry does say that at one point, of like, Garfield's kind of annoyed that he never picked it. It makes me wonder if like Barry will ever reveal his identity to Julio.
Right. Yeah.
And, maybe use that as a reason to tell Julio.
Exactly.
Probably not, but yeah. I don't know, it seems like he's gotten some fame from this, He's not being persecuted for his crimes. There's probably some sort of statute of limitations. Although he has been fighting crime 2 times recently with the Flash as a vigilante still, so he could still go to jail for, working outside the law. But instead, no, he's got fame and he's getting ready to write a book.
That's pretty cool.
I still like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of fun. And then for the 3rd time, Barry is going to have dinner and a date and is still not getting with Tina McGee.
Nope.
Why? Why is he going to dinner with Rebecca Frost after all this?
I don't know. And she asked him, basically. So it's not even him. She asked him. Going back to the last episode when Tina and Barry kissed at the end of the episode, it was kind of like, I just don't feel the chemistry that I think they wanted us to feel between Tina and Barry. I just don't feel it. So I don't know. I don't think we're going to see Rebecca Frost again. So it's not like she's going to cause tension between Barry and Tina. But yeah, I don't know why they sent her. It's just, yeah. I guess it's a nice wrap up to the episode because she knows Desmond, of course, and they're all together in the office. So it's a nice little, wink and a nod to the, to end the series or the episode off.
I don't know. I think it's just annoying me, the amount of dates that Barry's having. I get it. He's a single guy in the city. He can date if he wants to. But they just keep doing it over and over again. And are we going to get to Tina? I mean, why are we continuing to draw this out? They kissed last episode. Sure, it was in the future, but it should have ticked over a light bulb in Barry's head to be like, maybe I do like Tina. And now he's going to pursue that. But no, instead he's going to end this episode by going out on a date again. Ugh, frustrates me. Still a good episode, though.
Yeah, still a good episode. I was going to say, both of these episodes were fun. They were fun to watch. Definitely much, like I said, last week's were kind of blah. This week definitely redeemed it.
And Nightshade's a great character. I love seeing Nightshade. And Deadly Nightshade. I like that story. This, as much as Dr. Powell can help Barry as a superhero, he can also inspire something that's been totally bastardized. I think it's fantastic. I thought it was a great story concept. Albeit, I think both of them were they had their flaws. Still fantastic.
Yeah.
Come in. Barry, my lad. Nice to see you.
I can't even open a newspaper or turn on the TV without seeing you. 50s hero, unmasked.
Got me a book deal, couple of movie offers.
I better leave Garfield out of the story. You still can't believe you were able to hide your identity from him all these years.
You'll get over it. But you didn't get in your Sunday best just to come see me, did you?
Actually, I'm meeting someone for dinner.
Oh, anybody I know?
Professionally and personally. I'll take that as a compliment, you sexist pig. Ready to go, Barry?
She asked me.
Oh, what was I supposed to do? Wait for him to ask me? He was always disappearing.
You better be careful of her. She's a dangerous woman. I take it real slow, especially with that limp.
Oh, I think I can handle it.
Oh, I'll be the judge of that, Mr. Allen.
Oh, yeah? So, Dr. Powell, what about you? You got plans for the weekend?
Yeah, thought I'd have one hell of a garage sale.
They had to be there.
All right, so feedback.
Guess what?
Yeah?
We got a new feedback.
Yeah? An iTunes review?
We got a new iTunes review.
Woo!
Just October 2nd. This was posted by Prindle6460.
Cool.
And it says, awesome show, 5 stars. I've been with the guys at the Rewatch podcast for years now. Came for Sliders, stayed for Lois and Clark, and now The Flash. Corey, Tom, and Nathan put a ton of time and effort into the pod, and it shows. I really appreciate all the hard work, and I'm looking forward to the quantum leap to the next series. I like that fun. I would easily, it was good fun. I would easily recommend this podcast to anyone looking to experience some of the 90s nostalgia. So thank you, Prindle6460. We appreciate that. Our first review in 2 years.
I love it. And you know what? You're in the draw for a free digital comic book.
That's right. We just need 9 more. Come on.
Exactly. The next 9 that get in, you will all go in the draw, and you'll have a 1 in 10 chance of winning a free digital comic book. That is our call to action.
That's better than lottery, you know?
I know, right?
1 in 10.
Which is,
come on.
The lottery's like 1 in 500 gajillion. So
exactly.
Come on. Yeah, no, it really is the simplest and best way you can help out the show is to give us an iTunes review or even give us a review on your podcast app of choice. So iTunes, of course, is the big one, but come on. We love those reviews. It really bumps up the show when people do searches and stuff like that. It's just quick and easy. It'll take you all of, 2 minutes to do. And, we can't thank you enough for doing it.
Awesome. Thank you, Prindle, again. Thank you.
And, we've been talking about this for a few weeks. We're going to get to it. It's kind of a thing of timing as well. I mean, as we record this, it is, after midnight for me in Sydney. It says like 5:30 in the morning for you in Phoenix, Tom. So.
Right, yes.
But one of these days, we're going to try and do a live recording using the Facebook group. So facebook.com/groups/Rewatch podcast. And you'll see we've got a poll up there as well to, for like, what can we get into after we do Quantum Leap next? And, it's a really good interactive way using a group. So if you come by the group, that'd be awesome.
Yep, definitely.
All right. So next episode, Captain Cold and Twin Streaks. So
I'm assuming Captain Cold will be about Heatwave.
Yeah, probably. Makes sense.
Or maybe Captain Boomerang maybe will be in that one. So that
bring back that
clear.
guy from that gang, when we were talking about how he froze the security system.
That's
and Star
right.
Labs. He's probably
Yes.
Captain Cold.
There you go. So I think that one's pretty easy. Twin Streaks. I'm wondering if this is the one where we have, I don't think he's an evil Flash, but he's like a clone? I think?
Yeah, I've seen pictures of the blue Flash called Pollux, right?
Pollux,
So-
yes. So maybe that's this episode.
I love the play on Twin Peaks as well, which would have been big at this time, or
Exactly.
probably just cancelled actually in '91.
Yeah, well, whatever it is, we'll find out next week because that is it for this episode of the Rewatch Podcast. Head over to goldenspiralmedia.com/Apple for more great podcasts from Golden Spiral Media, and join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Rewatch Podcast or over on Twitter at Rewatch Pod. And like we said, don't forget your rating and reviews are always appreciated on whatever podcast app of your choice.
All right, as always, thank you for joining me for these discussions, Tom.
Yep.
Fantastic week. And that will just leave me to say, until next time. You know what? I think I'll have one hell of a garage sale.
We got it right.
Golden Spiral Media and the Rewatch Podcast are not associated with Pet Fly Productions, Warner Brothers Television, or Warner Brothers Television Distribution.
Come on, let's go down to Burger World so I can get some beef.
The use of any and all copyrighted material is solely for parody, news, analysis, critique, or educational purposes, as provided in United States Codes Title 17, aka Fair Use.
I don't believe you! You're still worried about your experiment, about your life's work?
Music provided by Kevin MacLeod at Incompetech.com.
If all else fails, we can always go to Vegas.
Copyright 2017, Golden Spiral Media.
What's your hurry? You got someplace to go?